Good afternoon, everyone. I see many participants are still joining, so we will start just in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I will plot the presentation. Excellent. I think we can start. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, this afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world, or morning, maybe, somewhere in North America. I welcome everyone to this webinar, which is part of a series of events called Keep on Learning, which we will discuss a little bit later. I'm very pleased to have you here. Thank you very much for your participation. Today we have a very special webinar, I must admit. It's a webinar with dear guest, Sabrina Colombo, who will be providing us today with a speech on building leadership mindset at Corona time. But I will pause the introduction of Sabrina just for a minute and take a little bit of your time for a little bit of a presentation. First of all, my name is Josip Kotlar. I am also a professor at MIT and the Politecnico di Milano. My expertise in the area of strategy and family business. But today I'm very happy to broaden a little bit my interests and look into the very important issue of leadership and what it entails today. Let me just share a couple of insights with you, and I will not steal too many minutes to Sabrina's presentation. Just to say that we are today living all together as a community, a very special time, clearly, a very dramatic and critical time. And despite this, I'm very proud to say that our school has been extremely active and proactive in delivering a number of initiatives. And we really want to be close to our students, to our alumni, to all the companies who work with us. So you can see on our social media, on our website, newsletter, you can see that we are promoting and publishing a lot of material, which is all free of charge, with suggestions, live webinars like this, and other contents that really allow us to reflect and set up, for addressing the current crisis. So even in a situation like this, definitely our motto is we need to keep learning, right, more than ever. Also, I would really like to share with you one initiative. It's a social initiative. It's one that we launched as an MIP, and together with the School of Management of Politecnico di Milano, we approached two hospitals in central Milan, Ospedali San Paolo and San Carlo, and we agreed to help these hospitals raise important funds for many uses. Especially right now, we are trying to help them buy all the equipment that is necessary for the safety of the medicians, the doctors, and the nurses who work in these hospitals. As you know, the situation is getting better, and this is a very good news for all of us. But at the same time, it is still critical, and especially these needs are very pressing. So I would like you to consider joining us. We have already collected more than 30,000 euros in donations, from small to large donations. Every single euro counts. So please, you will find a link here, but also I would kindly ask my colleagues in the background to post the link in the chat so you can easily access it. It's really easy, it's really fast. All you have to do is just go on the web page. On this web page, you will find the campaign, you will find the donors, and all you need to do is to do one click on this yellow button. So we really hope that you will be happy to join the campaign with us and contribute, even with a small donation, to our cause. Every single penny of this fundraising campaign goes straight to the hospital, and every evening we transfer the funds that we collected to the hospital so they can use it immediately the day after. That said, let me come to the topic of today's webinar, and I would like to present Sabrina with a couple of reflections, because I had the pleasure to talk with Sabrina Colombo before, and we shared some ideas, and I was pretty much inspired by her thinking. So I felt also compelled to put together a couple of thoughts as an introduction to her speech. As we know, we are living a time of crisis, but also it is a time of continuous surprises, if you want. We all have a very limited knowledge of what is really happening. There is a lot of uncertainty. We lack reference points, and there is clearly a complexity that goes beyond one single system, is multi-system, it spans across the globe, across economies, and it affects us at so many levels. So it is really unprecedented in terms of scope, complexity, geopolitical and economic salience. So what we know about surprises and what we know about crises, we know that at their most negative, they can have very dramatic consequences, both on organizational members, but also on organizations as a consequence. At the same time, we know the research is showing us that actually crisis very often yields positive outcomes. Particularly, we know that some organizations are able to turn around crisis situations and actually turn them into some innovative ideas and to shape, a new mindful engagement of their members towards a renewed effort towards action. So somewhat we also want to send a positive message in this time. We need one, and we want that to be, today is a time where we need to think creatively and we need to embrace innovation, to change, to make a positive change in the world. Well, it's also worth, I thought, to distinguish clearly what we are talking about today. We are a management school. We mostly deal with management issues. And we talk about, for example, crisis management. We talk about structures and processes that can help prevent, prepare, and respond to the crisis, or even to reconstruct after a crisis has taken place. But leadership is something different. Leadership is something that has to deal with the individual efforts and behaviors, and those behaviors that have an effect on people, on the followers, on the organizations, on societies. So we know that the literature recently has more and more emphasized a specific type of leadership, which we call sometimes charismatic leadership. Sometimes we call it inspirational, and sometimes we call it transformational types of leadership. In all of these words, what they mean is that leaders not only have to provide guidance, but also they need to help others find their own guidance. So what we call framing the threats in a way that can reveal some opportunities ahead. That said, I must admit that we rarely find the type of leadership that we are looking for in the real practice. This is a little bit of a collection that I put together, thinking about what we expect on one hand from great leaders today and what indeed we find in research. So bear with me, because these few concepts can really open up your thinking for this webinar. First, we think that leaders should put public safety first, right? But we know very well that there are trade-offs between economics and health. And unfortunately, leaders need to find a compromise in the end. Second, leaders should prepare for worst-case scenarios, but we know that all of us and all of the leaders are reluctant to prepare themselves, right, for kind of crisis response roles. Also, leaders should heed warning about future crises, right? They should be aware and they should identify warning signals. But we know, and we have observed in last weeks, that many leaders have misinterpreted, have ignored repeated indications of danger. We also know that during a crisis, leaders take charge and provide clear direction to crisis management. But all of us who today live this situation, we know that today operations demand lateral coordination, not top-down command and control, right? So again, another element of contrast between what we think leadership should be and what actually we see and observe in everyday behaviors. 5, leadership should be compassionate about the victims of crisis, and they should try to help both with words and with real concrete actions. But we know that also many leaders make, unfortunately, unrealistic promises. Finally, we know that leaders should strive for learning lessons after a crisis, but also we know that leaders sometimes are caught in the politics of blaming, and the learning sometimes doesn't really happen in that environment. So this slide really would like to work as a warning for all of us, right, and myself included, about what are the leaders that we are looking for and what are the attributes that we need to look for in a good leader today, leader that can make really positive impacts. So, and it is with these premises that I would like to introduce our speaker today. Her name, as I said, is Sabrina Colombo. Sabrina is an entrepreneur. She's a coach, a certified coach. She has worked, she has a long-lasting experience in working in multinational companies, especially in the baby food industry. And in the late 90s, she became also a startupper. We met Sabrina as one of our students in the Flex Executive MBA at MIP from 2015 to 2017. So we are very proud to have an alumni today with us sharing her experiences. She has experience as general manager, as I mentioned, as a mother, as a wife, and as a coach. And worth mentioning also some of the initiatives launched by Sabrina, especially one that impressed me particularly, which is the company called Digital Learning and the initiative called mastermama.it. This is a new platform to help parents at work, right? Plus other activities, particularly her coaching practice, which is still running. So I'm very pleased to welcome Sabrina and to give way to her webinar. Final remark, how this webinar can work. Basically, we have many participants. We want to do a speech of about 50 minutes, 50 minutes. And then after that, we would like to engage in a Q&A session with you with questions and answers. We cannot accommodate direct questions live, but what we will do is to filter a little bit your comments. So I will serve in that role during the Q&A. I will try to facilitate. I will identify comments and questions from the chat that seem particularly relevant or pressing. And I will try to turn these questions to Sabrina in order to engage in a conversation. So if you have questions during the webinar, just feel free to write your comments in the chat and be reassured that I will be here and I will be ready to take on your comments at the end of the session. So without much other ado, I would like to welcome Sabrina Colombo. So Sabrina, you can now take the control of the presentation, please.
Thank you so much, Josip, and thank you so much for your introduction and for your welcoming address. I have to say that, as usual, I'm really very happy to come back to MIP. As you said, I am a MIP alumna, and it is a pride for me to be here tonight with you and with all of the community. And allow me to thank you and Valentina Goglio for the kind invitation to share with you which are some first considerations on the new leadership mindset that is step by step developing during this coronavirus crisis. Tonight, I was saying that I am a MIP alumna, and as a MIP alumna and as entrepreneur, I fully understand and agree with the fact that all entrepreneurs or leaders and managers do need hard skills. So I fully agree also with your motto, keep on learning. I think that today, perhaps more than in the past, we also need to focus and to keep in mind that our hard skills need to be combined with soft skills. And actually tonight we are going really to concentrate ourselves on soft skills, starting from what is happening now. I'm sorry. Okay, here we are. We are living a crisis that we have never thought of. Why? Firstly, It is a global crisis. We have thought many times these days of comparing this crisis with a war. But actually, it is more than the usual wars that we have been accustomed to live in our history, the human history, because actually we are really all countries, all nations, all people are all together against one enemy. And this enemy is an unknown one, because we actually do not see this enemy. We are not fighting against this enemy with usual weapons and usual military strategies. It is something completely different. It is something completely new for human beings. And fighting against the unknown is something very peculiar for this crisis, because fighting against the unknown raises the impact on our emotions and on our being uncertain about the future. So let's keep in mind that we are fighting against the unknown. And fighting against this unknown enemy, we actually have seen a lot of changes, or better, we have tried to live a lot of changes that we didn't want, and that were actually decided abruptly by someone else, and we had to try to cope with these decisions and these changes. And what we have observed are change resistances. We have had the clearest examples of change resistance, that is, of how human beings do react in front of a change. And this is extremely important for leaders and managers and entrepreneurs. We have seen that our governments have decided for laws that prevented us, for example, for being in open air together with our friends or with our families. And this was something compulsory. The resistance we have shown is that we went on going out together with our families and with other friends, and we went on jogging without any protection, and we went on shaking hands, even if one of the first prevention that is advised is do not touch. And another change resistance that we have seen in most leaders and in most government leaders is avoiding admitting the truth. We all remember leaders saying, "It is just a flu. Do not worry, it is just a flu." All these are examples of how we as human beings do react during a change. We create oppositions to the change. It is very hard that human being accepts changes without building resistances, because these resistances are influenced by what we fear, by our emotions. It is our fear, it is our anger, it is also our being sad for having lost something that creates resistance or creates biases that are really very dangerous at this time, above all for leaders. So let's keep in mind together the unknown enemy and resistances to change. And another very important change was lockdown decisions. And these lockdown decisions have changed abruptly, completely, our working system, our learning system. We are all, they say, in smart working. I would say better in home working, because most companies were not prepared for smart working. They were not organized. They were not ready. They had not implemented organizational patterns to sustain smart working. So actually people found themselves from yesterday to tomorrow to be at home with a personal computer and starting to live their smart working, better home working. How? Using the patterns of working in a company on site and trying to put them and to organize their home working according to what they did in the office. And so we find people that are very stressed because they are full of video calls, of meetings, and they work much more time than before the coronavirus. And let's think, and you know that I have I'm very keen on parents and working parents, because I am a working parent, and I think that they are really undergoing a very huge change these days, because they need to organize their home working and their sons or daughters smart learning. And it is very huge. It is the stress and the influence on emotions is very high. Okay, and let's keep in mind also smart working. So the unknown, the resistance to change, and smart working. And what else? We are living in the most uncertain time. Before the coronavirus, we had our agendas full of deadlines. We were sure of our future. We had precise timelines to launch a new product, to change one's business model, to take any important decisions for our company, for our job, for ourselves. Now the pattern has changed completely, because we are no more in power to decide our deadlines. Our deadlines depend on government decisions, and we feel without any power in front of these deadlines, because again our pattern has completely changed. We are living uncertain times, and we do not know how and when we can start again to plan our business, our life. And actually, we are living a time of fear and uncertainty. We are trying to survive and to get rid as soon as possible of an economic crisis. This is even very important. Why? because it is the first time that we are in front of uncertain word, uncertain vision, uncertain deadlines, uncertain visions. We do not know how the world will change. It is like an empty blackboard. And we need to handle with this empty blackboard. But in order to handle with this empty blackboard, we need firstly to handle with the unknown, with the resistance, with the introduction of new kind of organizations and new patterns, with our fear and with our feeling uncertain. And which are impacts of all these on each of us. I would like to stop some minutes on this slide because I would like to share with you what's happening in our brain when we feel fear and when we feel uncertain. I'm sure that all of you have listened and have been taught about comfort zone. And what we are living is a clear example of a disruptive change of all our comfort zones, because this crisis is involving our professional and also our private life. So what happens when we feel fear? Firstly, let me tell you that when we feel emotions, it is our brain that develops emotions. And it is the most ancient part of our brain that develops emotion. It is that part that has inherited the animal instinct of the ancient human beings. So when we see danger, we escape from fire. When we see uncertainty, we try to escape from uncertainty. And when we feel fear, normally a consequence of fear is getting back to the past, to the comfort zone, or freezing. Freezing means that each of us doesn't do anything at all. And this is the risk of leaving this situation without welcoming it, without understanding that everything that we are experiencing and that we are living is actually something that we can't change. And the only thing that we can do is getting through it. Getting through this situation is living this situation for what it is. Welcoming a situation means that I do emotionally and rationally accept this situation as it is. Emotionally and rationally understand that here I have a black pen as it is. It is hard, it is not easy, and you see how many people are complaining, are getting angry, are lying, are misleading the reality because they are not welcoming the reality. And actually, the only leader I have seen up to now who has accepted the reality and who has shown this in her speech was Queen Elizabeth II on Sunday. She was the only one who immediately admitted that this crisis is a challenge for all of us. And I really think that her speech was really a masterpiece of leadership. And I will, by the end, explain you why. So, is it clear up to now? Okay, we have seen what is happening. We understood that we are in front of a crisis we have never seen before because the patterns of this crisis are different from any other crisis, any other war we have lived before. We have seen which are our resistances to change. We have seen what we have started to implement as new pattern. But we have also seen how we as human beings do react against the change and how we can react in front of fear and in front of uncertainty, unless we practice welcoming the situation as it is. And welcoming the situation as it is allows us to really accept it and really start to act, to change it. And this is really the key point of welcoming a situation, of being able to looking at the facts, looking at the facts for what they are, will help us to build our new leadership mindset, will help us to be innovative and creative. Josip, are there any questions up to now? No, I don't think so.
No, I don't see any, Sabrina. Okay. So you can continue, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, a radical mindset change is needed because we are living a crisis that we have never lived before. And while we are speaking of this mindset change, let's keep in mind all the resistances that we usually build as human beings when we are in front of a change. And by welcoming what we are living, we have the great opportunity to build a future leadership mindset. And by building this future leadership mindset, we will realize that what is needed for the future is just not simply managing, but it is really leading oneself, one's people, and one's business. Managing will be old-fashioned. Managing by giving instructions, by checking results, by checking simply organizations' plans won't be enough. This will be quite an old-fashioned way to manage what we are going to face with. I wanted to start this second part with this quotation. It is true that it is a quotation from 2012, but I think that it suits this time very well. We measure success by the way we touch the life of people. This is a very key point. We will not be able to be innovative, to be creative, to be open-minded, and to manage our people if we do not think of the way we have to touch their lives. And in fact, the core for the future leaders will be led with humanity and empathy. And this is a first key message to take home tonight. I've read 2 days ago a survey that was published by the Job Consultant Foundations here in Italy. And according to this survey, the 79% of the interviewed entrepreneurs said that they were not convinced of smart working or of home working, and that when the crisis is over, they will come back to the old pattern of office working. Do you understand that these will not fit anymore? Will not fit because these will mean that these managers and these leaders and these entrepreneurs haven't understood, firstly, their feelings and their needs to improve their business, won't have understood the feelings and the emotions of their people, and won't have understood that they will not be able to come back because home working has allowed people to leave some advantages, and they won't agree with coming back. Leading with humanity will mean really to show what the leaders or the owners of companies have suffered in these days, have really thought of these days, have felt these days. Because we know that managers, leaders, entrepreneurs are thinking of how they can restart again. They are afraid of losing their business. And they have discovered that they have a very important human side. And a big mistake will be to deny this human side, but above all, to deny their people's human side. Leader with humanity will be really to show who you are as an entrepreneur and as a leader. Will be to frankly speak to your people, because only together we will be able to succeed again. And lead with empathy will be extremely important, because if leaders are open with their emotions, with their thoughts, with their aims, with their plans, they will build a link, an empathy link to their people, who will have the chance to feel really involved in the reconstruction of the success of the company. So, firstly, do not forget to lead with humanity and empathy. Be one of your team. Be one of your staff. Be altogether your company. And lead with the main accent on altogether. Alone will not be enough anymore. Being a lonely leader, a lonely manager won't be enough, because the crisis we are going to face will need all the strength of all the people of the company, of your team, because we will need to be as much creative and innovative as ever. And being creative and innovative means that we need to work together. And we need, as leaders, to listen to each other, to take into account what your people, what our people say. Lead with humanity, lead with empathy, lead all together, because empathy, humanity, all together will allow you to build something so strong to fight against the unknown, to fight against the resistance, because all of you are sharing their emotions, all of you are sharing their thoughts, also their resistances. And by sharing them, you all are welcoming them as facts, and you will be able to work on them. And be careful. Emotions can build the strongest resistances, the strongest conflicts. And in the future, we do not need conflicts in our teams, among our people. We need to be all together in order to be innovative and in order to be creative. And of course, lead with a common purpose. I know this is not a new concept, but how many times we have heard in our companies, we lead with common purpose, and actually no one has spoken or has agreed to that purpose apart from the top management. Leading with common purposes is I, as a manager, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, do sit together with my people and I explain them the situation where we are, because sharing it with all the thoughts and with all the emotions will help to build that step in order to build on it with common purpose, the new success. And having a purpose is really very important, because having a purpose means that you are lowering any resistance against the uncertainty. Having a common purpose means all together to reach a common purpose and to fight against the unknown, against the uncertainty. Which skills do we need to reach these leadership patterns? Please improve your empathy. Improve your empathy by asking your people, by asking open questions to create involvement and to be clear with your people. Practice active listening. Stay there with your people and listen to them for what they say, not for what you think of them. Try to share the best and easiest communication with them. Check that everything is clear, that anything you say is true, that you are not describing resistances, that you are not describing a parallel reality, that you are not saying it is a simple flu, but admitting it is a challenge. And share this communication, clear, direct, with all your empathy, with all your emotions, and share your focuses, and be able to accept comments, new ideas, because we really need to create together new values and new plans. Because we need to create collective motivation and shared success. I would like to finish because my time is almost over, and I would like to give you the right time for your questions and for sharing your mind. I would like to finish with a quotation of Queen Elizabeth II's speech. And really, if you have a chance, it takes a couple of minutes. Find it on the website, on the internet, and read it, because it lasted 5 minutes, but in 5 minutes clearly she stated everything, and she ends with this word. She was comparing before this ending what was happening now with her experience of the Second World War, and she said, this time we join with all nations across the globe in a common endeavor, using the great advances of science and our instinctive compassion to heal. We will succeed, and that success will belong to every one of us. We should take comfort that while we may have more still to endure, better days will return. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again. And I would add, we will be again in all our companies to create collective motivation and shared success. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sabrina. We cannot hear clapping hands, of course, because we are online, but I think it was very interesting. I found it extremely insightful. I already see some questions coming up. So first of all, thank you, Sabrina. I really like your thoughts. Let me maybe break the ice of the Q&A session with a more broader question, which touches upon the point that you discussed, which is purpose. Right, I was very intrigued by the word purpose, and I really wanted you to ask you just what do you mean by it? What does it mean to have a purpose, and where do we find it? Right, how to find a purpose?
Okay. It is something that, as a coach, and we coach are very accustomed to help and to support our partners to find a purpose. It is not easy to find a purpose, but really, purpose is the thing that you want to reach with all your strength, with all your thoughts, with all your emotions. Is something that you want to be. And sometimes we support our partners to think, where would you like to be in a certain time? What would you like to do in a certain time? Having a purpose is having an aim. And if you have an aim, it is easier for you to work with yourself, with your people, to reach it. It is really, I would say, another key point for our future. We have no time and we have really no time to work without having a clear purpose. And having a clear purpose means that you really have to stay there, firstly alone, then sharing with your people, and writing down all pros and cons, and convincing you and your people that that purpose is really what you really want with all your strength, but also with your being able to be analytical. Because if the purpose is not bound to earth, it's dangerous. So please combine your managing of emotions with your analytical skills. And here is what I like also of this webinar, combining hard and soft skills. Have I answered your question?
I think so. Absolutely. Thank you. It's an interesting concept, and I know it comes from more the coaching experience and so on, but I've seen it applied also in strategy, in innovation. Even think about some initiatives at Politecnico, just to mention some. For example, design thinking is inspired by purpose. It means doing innovation, and we have indeed. And we are launching also another program which is doing strategy with purpose. And again, that's why also that captured a little bit my attention. And I like the way you put it, like combining the hard and the soft element.
That is the meaning of sharing the purpose, because it is important, and it is important to share it with hard and soft skills.
Absolutely. I see a question from a very interesting question for one of the attendees. Particularly would start with Gianni, who just asked, are these skills and the mindsets also recommendable for all levels of the hierarchy? Let's say he is asking more about the boss and the responsibles. But my question then, I would like to open it up and then say, okay, but how can we all be leaders at every single step, let's say, of the ladder, of the organizational ladder? Is there some differences? And yes, please.
Yes, for sure there are some differences, and for sure we will see this ladder in companies. We will still see it. The meaning is that each person will have his own role in the company, and will have the hard skills for that role. The humanity, leading with humanity, I was speaking of, means that the leader needs to create a sort of fil rouge among all people. He's the one who is leading and the one who is showing this fil rouge. Each of us, each one in the company may have a leading personality in the sense that they may share, they may contribute, they may be part of the plan, of the company, of the design thinking of the company. And it is also true that each role gives the support that can give according to the skills of the role. The humanity really is what is the difference between managing and leading now. Humanity means that you can't deny that also all your employees have suffered from this crisis. And you can't think that they will come back as they were. Okay? This is the humanity I wanted to underline as a leader, but for sure, this humanity concept can be shared and can be played by anyone in the company.
Excellent, thank you. Another question regards the level of awareness, right? About you talk about you are foreseeing basically a very major change in how we see management and leadership, of course. And Giacomo is asking, okay, but are people already aware? And are readers aware of it? And I would extend it just asking, what else can we do, you know, to raise awareness about this? Okay.
Firstly, we are already doing something. We are speaking of it. Because, and this is something that is really very great, because we are starting speaking of it. No, actually, people are not aware yet of this change and of this new concept of leadership mindset. Just to give you some examples, Harvard, MIT, or other business reviews, even Forbes, have just started to speak about this new concept of leadership, this new concept of mindset, because actually we are living now this crisis. By living this crisis, we are really starting to think what we will need as leader. It is not a common knowledge as a leadership, the old leadership patterns weren't common knowledge in the past. For sure, now it is important to give this message, to speak about the necessity to build a new leadership mindset, because just think, we will start again our business in a month, in 2 months, who knows? But by that time, really, we need to get ready to be open-minded and to be ready to accept feelings, emotions, fears, and uncertainty, because we are going to an uncertainty time. If we are already building some steps to get the opportunities to develop new concepts, new chances, even new businesses.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My mic is on. Another very interesting question by Maria. Maria is asking, well, she mentioned one of the leaders who definitely has stand out in these last days regarding taking a leadership position in this, and we are talking about Queen Elizabeth in the UK. We also, I would say, also we have seen some episodes and some behaviors from large, very important leaders who have not definitely standed to, to the expectations, right? And they had to be proven wrong later on. So maybe you can help us. Can you think of other examples of people who had made some very good leadership position or leadership behaviors in recent times, and someone who you personally also look at as an example to follow?
Okay, I have to be honest, and perhaps I may have also missed someone, but up to date I haven't seen so great leadership examples by all the leaders that are ruling the most important countries. Today, even today, Mr. Trump said that we are again by the end of the tunnel. And this is a clear lie. We as Italians do know it, because we haven't arrived by the end of the tunnel. I have seen many leaders to sustain a sort of political and economic propaganda. I also understand that because the markets do answer immediately to their statements. But this means that they are not leaders bound to facts, bound to what we are living, empathic with their people. But if I think, for example, of the mayor of New York, I have to say that he is another great example of leader. Because if you listen to his speech to his people, he's really telling the truth. He is saying they are living hard times. He is saying, for example, also that he is suffering for his brother. And this is the human touch. This is sharing humanity. This is saying, your people, that you are as human as they are. And that you need them to build the rules, to pay attention to the rules, and to endeavor, and to get the chances to build the future. He is really a clear example of leading with humanity.
I definitely can see this as you speak, and as I'm going through your previous slides. Humanity, humility, the idea of making it together, right, and to build the future. I think these elements really provide a reading device, right, a framing device through which we can see actually. And I see others who are making comments about Trump and other leaders, and you can definitely use this as a test, right, to assess.
May I add another remark that I think that it is really very important. Sometimes when I speak in companies about emotions, I perceive that some people are quite are not comfortable with emotions, because we usually think of business as something rational, of numbers, of strategy, of results, of managing by objective, of being very bound to facts, to numbers, to results, to EBIT. Okay, I am an entrepreneur and I do understand this completely. I also understand that above all now, we can't forget the emotional part, the human part. If I, as an entrepreneur, am not going to understand the human part, the emotional part of my employees, I can't do it alone. And you see the real example of Major Cuomo. He is the one who shared his human values, his human feelings. But by sharing with with his people, he was able to involve his people. And he was able to act. Because in business, at the end, we needed to act. We needed to take decision. But we needed to have our people with us. And this is really a clear example for me, also for the concept of this webinar.
Absolutely. And I could see also the empathy that that Cuomo transmitted when he talked about using the Central Park as a temporary cemetery. I read those lines several times because the delicacy, the effort that went into that message and the empathy that message sends is really truthful. It's really how to say, authentic, right? And I really can relate to that, what you're saying.
Yeah, he's not lying. He's showing himself as he is.
And he's saying a hard truth, and then at the same time he's making it like very compassionate and very touching to the people. Yes.
Yeah.
You said you mentioned during your chat also a little bit about deadlines, right? And then that triggered a little bit of a thought in my mind. Clearly, in the past, I'm saying in the past, I'm referring to 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
In the past, we tended to say, at least in research, allow me to wear my professor hat for a while.
Of course.
But we tended to say that people who are extrovert, people who are have an internal locus of control, right? So people who believe they can make things happen, today are struggling. And quite paradoxically, right? People who instead are accepting that some things are given and some things are not changeable. Actually, these people seem to be better placed today to deal with the uncertainty, to deal with the lack of deadlines and so on. What is your thought about it? And how does it relate to your thinking about your model of leadership?
The fact is that they have been able to deal with the resistances, that they have been able to welcome what is happening as it is. Okay, we were told to stay at home. They accepted it. They didn't spend their days complaining for the fact that they had to stay at home. Perhaps they learned that also their children had to start smart learning. And believe me, it is not so easy, above all for the primary school, the elementary school. It has to be done. They were not fighting against what they couldn't change. They were developing solution-focused strategy to support themselves in their families at home while smart working and supporting their children in smart learning. And this is really this is the welcoming concept I was trying to explain before. It's useless to fight against something that you have to do. I mean, we can't, now we are in lockdown, we are shut down, and we have to stay at home, which is the reason why I have to fight against this rule. I spend my energy and time saying, okay, have to pay attention to this. So how do I organize my day? And which are the opportunities with my staying at home with my family, for example. And this, if you compare this with business, which is the reason why to fight against the change in the company when the change is necessary, which is the reason why to fight against smart working when your employees have tested and have experienced smart working. Why don't you use, as a manager and as a entrepreneur, your energy and your skills to develop a concept, an organizational concept in your company to sustain smart working, even after coronavirus? Because you should also think as a manager that if your people start smart working, perhaps you can also spare some money. And this has been shown recently by a research published by Polyhub, where it was testified that companies may save the 25% of a location and office cost by implementing smart working. And this is a managerial skill.
I absolutely agree. And this is one of those examples where you can really see how small things can really make a big difference, right? And
Yeah.
Tomorrow, when companies will face really heavy financial constraints, freeing up 25 or more % of space leased or bought or or rented, that can be a very, very major impact.
Yeah, this is a chance for investing your money differently, and this will be a very big chance. It may also be a chance to sustain your survival as a company. But if you still think that you need to see your employees and to check them because you want them to work, managing them by how many papers do they write in a day and not managing them by sharing purposes and objectives, you're missing a chance. You're missing a change that may allow you to save the 25% of your cost.
Which is major, absolutely.
It is major, yeah.
Thank you, Sabrina. I don't see other questions. I would say that we have discussed to a good deal of attention and focus into this topic. Do you have any final remark, Sabrina, or any suggestions for our attendees and participants?
Okay, my suggestion is really feel what you are feeling now. Feel free to feel your emotions. Feel free to welcome them. Feel free to develop new thoughts. And feel free to start talking in the company, even about your future, and sharing with your teams, with your colleagues, your thoughts, because the company will need all of you. So really do not build resistance and be bound to the truth. We are living hard times, but we may have the chance to find out new opportunities. This is my advice, and this is what I would like to tell all of you by closing this webinar.
Thank you, Sabrina. A virtual applause to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. I will give a couple of final remarks and I will let then you all to your evening plans and the dinner. I was really pleased to see this seminar and this webinar specifically because it involves an alumni. Now, let me speak also as a delegate for MIP for alumni. I think this is a beautiful initiative in which we are really thankful for your availability, Sabrina, and to Valentina and Luigi for having the idea. I think this is really, really good, because then we can really create this community and speak to one another and bring experiences from one to another within the community. So I really thank all the 50 and more attendees of this seminar, and the 20 who are still with us even at this late hour. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your engagement. Let me say the journey continues. We will have a series of webinars in the next days and weeks. So please check our, just check our website, check our social media, connect with us. If you struggle, just send us an email. You know where to find us, alumnirelations@mip.it. And yes, please keep in touch, keep on learning, and let's continue to be a community. I see some other questions coming. I will actually take them and send them to Sabrina, so you can also...
So I can answer all
with
questions. Yes, and in case after the webinar, if someone has more questions, may I leave my mail address? It's really very easy.
Absolutely.
It is Sabrina Colombo, one word, at coaching and consulting, one word, .it. So Sabrina Colombo at coaching and consulting.it. So I'm waiting for the questions that are coming. I will be very happy to answer them. Thank you again so much for this opportunity. And I'm really very glad to have got this chance to speak about this subject that I really feel deeply.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you.
Final remark, maybe you can write the
Yes,
email address here. I try to do it, but I'm afraid that I got something wrong. So instead of sending it out, here, Valentina has already sent it. I just see it now. So now all of you will find already the email by Sabrina in the chat. You see that Valentina is always faster than us.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being with us tonight. And I look forward to meeting you again at the next webinar.
Yes, I'm very pleased. I will be really very pleased. Thank you very much again. See you soon.
And good evening.
Good evening. Ciao.